Welcome to the Game Changer podcast, where we are here to fuel the youth sports journey, bringing the stories and the experts straight to you. I'm Ben McFarlane, and this is episode one. Super exciting. Belinda and I sat down earlier this week with mental performance coach and mental toughness coach Zane Winslade. Now, Zane works with youth athletes, he works with elite athletes from around the globe, and look, this stuff has fascinated me for a long time. How we can work with the brain to create better performance. Within the pod, you'll hear us talk about identity and building strong identity in our athletes and how that can help. We talk about belief and courage and confidence, walking towards discomfort. Zane digs into visualization and how the practicalities of this might be a little bit different, but he really looks at what you need to do to make this work super well and increase performance. We look at a couple of tough moments that a lot of our athletes and especially our youth athletes face, and how you can frame these moments to build better performance and build strong, courageous athletes. We really enjoy the chat. We hope you get lots out of it. Here it is now.
Today we are joined by a very special guest, Zane Winslade from Flow Sport. Welcome to the show, Zane.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited to chat to you, and we've got heaps of questions that we'd love some advice on. But before we begin, for our listeners who might not know too much about you, are you able to share a bit about your sporting background and how you've transitioned into a mental skill coach?
Cool. Yeah. Um, I guess starting back, I was young sports person, like played loads of sports and sort of found my way as a New Zealander does into rugby. And I played rugby at a reasonable level in New Zealand and sort of the what do they call it now? NPC, I guess, but various names it's had. And then went overseas and played in the UK. I played professionally in Romania, played in Portugal for a couple of seasons. So utilized the sport to get lots of travel and meet loads of people. And then always um, always had wondered about the mental side of the game and really been interested in it. Dabbled a little bit with my own game, trying things, and was always really curious about it. So I came back home to New Zealand after, yeah, quite a long time away and did my master's degree in sports psychology. And I guess I gravitated towards helping youth athletes because I'd been a teacher and some training in that and was comfortable working with youth, but also knowing that there's probably it's probably important to start early, with the young ones, and then you can have some pretty well equipped and resilient and sort of resourceful athletes later on. So yeah, I'd been doing the youth stuff for I mean, and sort of elite level, everything in between. For well, it's been about 8 years now. Yeah.
Nice. I want to jump back into your playing career.
hmm
And you said you were dabbling in it yourself. Is that because there was kind of a void and no support in that space for you? So you had to kind of try and do it yourself? Or...
Yeah, I mean, there's little bits and pieces, but you might have one guy come in and do something for an hour in the season, like that would be it. Um, and other than that, yeah, no real support and no real kind of, uh, I guess, evidence-based or or sort of like the stuff we had wasn't necessarily, like um techniques or things that would actually help. It's kind of often pseudoscience stuff, and like it was just
Yep.
people's magic tricks that they'd used over the years, but might
Bit
not
of old school
necessarily
magic.
yeah, all that stuff like um work for so and so, so it's probably worked for you guys type thing. So I was critical of that a bit, and then like I remember buying all these books, but like quite a few books, and trying, so visualizing and And also discovering a whole lot of stuff that just that you can't necessarily fix. And like, I think you might have been, because you've been to a few of my workshops. I talk about, my first game sometimes, and the pressure, or I guess the self-doubts and the worries and stuff that was going through my mind there, and having, done my own readings and done a little bit of sports psych at uni, feeling like I had some answers, but then realizing that maybe maybe there is no answers in those moments, and actually I'm thinking about the wrong things. I need to be thinking about being in the moment and just accepting a lot of that stuff, and getting on with it. Yeah, I'm wary
There's
about stuff.
obviously a bit of a search going on in your head, though, while you're out there on the field going, I've got these feelings.
Yeah,
There's got to be a way. Like maybe I see these other players who don't seem
yeah,
to have the same feelings as
yeah,
me, but are
yeah,
able to get over it.
yeah,
And that's where it sort of kicked off for you. Would that be
yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. You sort of go, well, hang on, why am I like this? And then also, it's the joke, isn't it? In psychology, you sort of want to do the me search, instead of research. It's kind of like all about figuring out yourself, what's going on there. Um, so you do, yeah, did make me curious and want to understand that a little bit better. Yeah, and I don't know. Here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, we got, or I remember this moment. I got you along to talk to our football academy, and I went to introduce you, and I said something along the lines of, "Zane's here to help you solve the mental game," and as soon as you started speaking, you went, "I need to stop you. We don't solve the mental game," and that really stuck with me. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, I guess you get really sick of, and when you do the sports psychology work, I'm not sick of, because you kind of expect it, but like, if we could solve a lot of these issues, we probably would have. In terms of, a lot of people have that expectation that we can kind of get rid of all the discomfort, and become really confident, and for everything to be fine. But like, life just doesn't work like that, eh? Like, we're always going to come across troubles, and we're always going to have struggles. We're always going to go through stress, and we're always going to feel, it's different for different people, but we're always going to have moments where we feel anxiety, and the nerves are going to come up, and we're not going to know what to do, and we're going to have doubts, and that's perfectly normal and okay. And so sometimes the people think, well, I need to solve that stuff. It actually can get in the way, because I kind of alluded to it, but like, if you're trying to solve some of that real natural and normal human emotion, then you're kind of focusing on the wrong things. Um, and that can take away from your performance even more than the nerves, and the stress and the emotion and stuff that's going on, even more than what that can do. Your desire to get rid of it and solve it can really actually create more problems. So that's probably why I straight away said that. Um, yeah, if I've explained that, hopefully I have, but it's really about, well, it's not necessarily about solutions. It's about, how can we work with what we've got? How can we change this relationship we have with all the mental challenges, and look at them a different way, rather than become a sort of robot, or
Mm.
sometimes you make like a psychopath, that if we put out um on the whiteboard in a workshop all the traits of a psychopath, doesn't feel emotion, cold, calm, and calculated, and all those sorts of things. And those are what you want to be in sport, but it's also probably not what you want to be as a person. And I'm not in the business of trying to create psychopaths, eh? So
That's
we
right.
would
It's about
embrace
creating
those.
healthy humans as well,
Yeah,
right? Good for
exactly.
communities and the
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not about like going, hey, well, how can we not feel? It's more about, okay, you're feeling a bit right now. Okay, that's not nice, but let's see how we can work through this in a positive way. And then maybe next time it won't be as um debilitating.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, Zane, what are the biggest mental challenges that you see the youth athletes that you work with are facing today?
Um, Probably the expectations that they sort of have of themselves, really focusing on achievement-based identity. So they're really building their identity around their achievements, what they're good at. That's who I am. You
Yeah.
know, I'm a good football player, I'm a whatever, and that they kind of feel like they have to live up to that. And that's
Mm.
a real mental challenge,
Yeah.
because that changes their whole perspective of how they're looking at their sport. And then obviously alongside that, that might be the overarching thing, and as a result, there's a lot of anxiety. They might have a lot of pressure, um, nervousness that they have within themselves. And then when the moments, the so-called big moments, or the moments where the game's on the line, they're going to be a lot. That's going to be a lot harder to deal with when you have that sort of achievement-based identity.
Yeah.
Um,
Where's that
but
come
that's
from, Zane?
a big one.
Like, is that an internal thing or is it external where you grow up and you're good at something and so mentions, oh, he's a good football player.
Yeah.
He's a really fast runner. And that just becomes part of your identity
Hmm.
from outside people, or is it a little bit of both?
No, I think you've nailed it. I mean, we're sort of conditioned that way. It's the way the world works, and we only see more and more of it now because of just, I guess, um, media and stuff. They're sort of bombarded with achievements, and you're also bombarded with it's all about me, 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 me. So everyone's reflecting on who they are, and I need to be this person to make it in life and to have a good life. And so you'll see, it's not like it's well intentioned by everyone saying we shouldn't like recognize success, but it's from the moment you start sport, there's always people rewarding the outcomes, the achievements that people go and do. And parents probably feed that as well. They were like, okay, well, you've done well today, good one, like awesome result, and then reward that. And so the behaviorists would say, we're like animals, eh? We're rewarded for that, so we think, oh, well, that's what I'm good for in this world. That's kind of what the value I add is being good and getting player of the day, and so they learn that, yeah, definitely reinforced, and it's really hard to sort of get away from that. That's one of the challenges.
I was going to ask about the parent side of things. So, do you find that the athletes that you work with, or that there is that pressure from parents for their child, to do well, and are
Mm,
they feeling that pressure themselves?
yeah, but I don't always like it because I'm a parent. Be kind to your pet to parents. They're all doing their best, and they're not intentionally trying to put the pressure on most of the time.
Mhm.
But they might be indirectly just through highlighting potential, this achievement-based identity stuff, like
Yes.
like how you're, praising outcomes for as an example. So what, well done on the win,
Mm.
like this constant sort of stuff, like saying that's okay. Again, I'm not having a go at parents, but if its stress is constant, like it's on like how well you do, how well you do, how well you do, all that praise is on that, then it's kind of natural that they feel that pressure then to then go and perform and to get more of that because they got rewarded for it and they want to do what they get rewarded for. So they do. It's only natural way we want to, we want to please mum and dad. So there's sometimes, like often it's, the kids will say to me, yeah, they're not pressured at all. Like they've said to me, they don't even care if I play or not, but I still feel it,
Yeah.
because they've invested all this time or so
Trainings and yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and they feel that, and everyone wants to do the best for their kids, but it's kind of important um, that we do that still. It's kind of being able to try and move away, just making sure that they're striving not just for that those outcomes, but
Mm.
for other reasons. They've got other things that they're sort of evaluating, I guess. And yeah.
So when you work with them, and I guess I'm looking at this through a parental kind of lens
Mm,
in terms of I, every parent wants their kid to be really good at what they do. I think, you want to maximize potential.
yeah.
You also want to create really healthy humans. And if your kid is attached to that identity with their sport,
Mm,
and maybe that's not healthy.
mm.
How do you work with them? So I guess, are you saying that it's more, um, I want to be able to say that this is my identity and this is who I am and this is what I stand for, and I play sport and I'm good at it, rather than I am an amazing football player and that's who I
Yeah.
am,
And it's fine to be
and
proud of
because
you.
that's healthier for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's
That
good.
they'll run into problems sort of down the line if that's their identity.
Mm. Yeah, and like it's okay as a parent to be proud of your kids' achievements and all that. I'm not
Yeah,
saying there's definitely not. But if I just think we've got to make sure, like, just always thinking what's been rewarded, like, was it the effort that they put in? Was it the character they showed? Was it the personal qualities that were on display that kind of like embody who they are as a person? Did they grit their teeth and get on with it? Um, did they face some adversity and some challenges, but keep going, or did they fail and then actually lift their head up and accept it and move on? Like all that stuff is like really got to be highlighted, because like as a parent, that's what we can do.
100%.
Because that's helping build their identity around what I just said, their personal qualities, what they offer to the game and to the world, what they can give of themselves. All of that's achievable in any moment. So, like I'm sitting there watch my daughter's only like 7, but compete. I'm like, come on, you know. But I know the moment she comes back, I'm like, that was awesome. You ran as fast as you could. It doesn't like.
Absolutely.
I still wanted to win, but like it's just being able to go as a parent. This is one thing we can do is being able to just curb that and go, okay, what's the personal qualities, you know, and you have that role of shaping that in your kids. So what did you see there,
Mm.
that you can sort of praise and acknowledge and bring up, and that takes a lot because the world is obviously all about rewarding achievement, and so it's really hard to make us something a bit bigger than that. Yeah,
Yeah, I guess that makes perfect sense. So if we're repeatedly focusing on grit, on effort, on kindness, of all those values that you really
mm,
want your kids to hold, and that becomes your identity, then I'm a gritty player who never gives up, has
yeah,
amazing effort in that sport, but also in the classroom, in all
yeah,
areas of my life, right? Rather than I
yeah,
am this player. It makes
yeah.
complete sense. And so that's for our parents. If you're talking to parents, you'd say that's what you focus on.
Yeah, yeah, like you're going just thinking, well, even you could say with the praise, make it, that's just the words that, what you do matters as well. But,
Yeah.
the praise around, is it achievement based or is it sort of character based stuff? Is it qualities, that they have and the effort, you know, as they would say in growth mindset, praising the effort
Mm.
constantly, that sort of stuff. And yeah, and then encouraging them like, we'll get to sort of dealing with emotion, but when they come off the field and they're in tears and they've tried their hardest, that's a moment where you don't go, okay, stop, don't be disappointed. You go, wow, you care about this, you've given everything, and I love to see, whatever it is, the passion that you've shown for the game and all that, and you're doing something that's pretty cool if you're feeling this and that sort of stuff. So you're not saying you're not trying to make them feel nothing by doing this, but you're kind of making them so, or there's some more meaning behind it that's kind of more than just like winning, getting player of the year or getting that scholarship to so and so academy or
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I want to talk about confidence and belief.
mm,
And some people seem to have it, like growing up playing a lot of sports, you had those athletes who seemed to be confident across a range of sports and confident in themselves. Is
yeah,
some of that identity, or is it habits they have? Is it things they're doing at home and how their parents have shaped the environment? Where does that confidence and that belief come from?
Mm. Yeah, you touched on a good thing we probably don't consider enough is that some people probably like just naturally are more confident or in the areas, everyone's in different areas. There's kind of a more of a global confidence, but then like a self-efficacy, like with
Mm.
certain tasks. Um, so we got to acknowledge that. Um, so yeah, there's some component of it that's just like biological or genetic. And then um, there's some components, I guess, where we can lose confidence when we have negative experiences and that can lower that. And sometimes people just generally have kind of a low confidence and they have maybe a little bit more nerves, a little bit more anxiety, things like that. So there's all sorts of different factors there, and we don't have all the answers. I don't believe there is, but someone might, but I don't in terms of confidence. But it's definitely, we never know what's going on with someone as well. Because I worked with some of, the top athletes in New Zealand and when I've seen them compete, you think they're the most confident and calm and, lacking no self-doubts and stuff like that, but it's just absolutely not true. Many of, like, most of the time. Everyone's got the stuff going on.
Yeah.
So although it's easy to look around and go, wow, they're so confident, you don't know that in terms of what's going on up here. Um,
So how do you go about like helping build that confidence or internal belief with
hmm.
athletes that you work with?
I actually always would talk about, okay, so you want to be confident. Let's talk about what it would look like if you were more confident. So what are the behavioral things, like what would you do if you were more confident? And we'd like go through and walk through even your like, preparation. So the golfer, I've been playing a bit of golf, so it came to mind. Working on my confidence. The golfer might the unconfident golfer might go and practice for hours and hours because they're just trying to find that little secret to make their game better. Whereas the confident golfer would probably, just have a normal week and maybe practice a little bit less and all that. So I get just one example, but get them to think about what would a confident person do?
Okay.
And then I say, well, let's just forget about confidence and talk about courage because doing those things that the confident person would do, that takes courage. Um, and let's try and do what confident would do, even though you don't feel it. Let's go and do it and have a bit of courage. Um, and then slowly we're like building up through doing those things that you didn't think you could do or should do, or like you're actually training your mind to carry some more confidence in because you're doing the things that a confident person would go and do, even though you don't feel it. So I kind of, yeah. One way of putting it, like it's like we want to be, we want to be talking about courage, not confidence, because confidence is a feeling that might maybe comes after courage, and that's not necessarily controllable, the confidence part.
So
You
that's
know,
kind of like the outcome you were talking before,
yeah, we
almost.
want to, yeah, I guess it is like that, eh? It's like we want to be focusing about what's courageous that I can do. Like it's almost guaranteed. You guys, I would encourage you to try it tomorrow if you find some, if you know, choose something that's just a little bit outside your comfort zone or whatever, and just do something courageous and notice how you feel afterwards. You'll go into the next thing you do with a little bit more
So that's
confidence.
where growth comes from, right?
Yeah.
And I guess as you grow, you get more confident in things.
Yeah, it's,
And
it's common, like people talk about growth outside the comfort zone, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's basic cliche stuff, but that's what you need to do. We need to stop waiting for and searching for confidence, the feeling, and just start doing confidence, the actions, with courage. And it is harder than it is to say, but
do you think that's harder today than it used to be? It almost feels sometimes like the world is set up for comfort
yeah, yeah, for sure, totally.
and to build more comfort and for people to be more comfortable, but actually you need that discomfort to grow. And now maybe more than ever, you have to go in search of it, perhaps.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's
Yeah.
I mean, I talk sometimes I've done in workshops and I'll put up like all the like marketing and stuff which is aimed at comfort, of all these products, So it's like there's a happy meal, you know. You should feel happy. Um, and like that was one example I can remember, but there's just loads and you see there's just bombarded with like feel good, feel good, feel good.
Yep.
Um, and if you follow that path, because it's naturally and normal to want to feel good, then if you're sacrificing sometimes like some stuff that's really important to you and going down that path, then yeah, you're not going to feel as confident about life if you've been following that feel good path all the time. That's comfort, it's comfortable lying on my couch, but at the end of the day, it's not building anything confidence wise, is it? So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
you just notice, how much of the world is just kind of like that's the goal, like, oh, I just want an easy job or I want an easy. It's like, hang on a second.
Yeah, but it's not helping you long term.
Yeah,
And you see teenagers in our youth with phones. I could go out and run around, but maybe that's too hard. I might just sit here on my phone for another hour,
exactly. Yeah,
and I can get stimulation that way.
yeah,
Um, but it's comfortable, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah. So
interesting.
that's a real good point because that's a real one that they can sort of generally understand. It's like boredom is an uncomfortable
Mm.
feeling, but
Mm.
we've kind of eradicated it. It's gone. Like you don't have to feel it now, as long as you got a Wi-Fi and got Wi-Fi and a charged phone. It's gone.
Yep.
Um, so that's one just uncomfortable emotion that we're kind of think, we've ditched that one, but there's always, like a sacrifice when you do that sort of thing. You you kind of like then telling yourself, oh, well, I can't have that. I can't handle that feeling. I can't have that. So, I'll spend my life escaping it. Okay, sweet. So the next moment you step up to take the penalty in the final, and you've just spent, the last year hiding and running away from uncomfortable feelings. How are you going to feel when you suddenly got an uncomfortable feeling in that moment? Your first instinct is going to be to run away from it because you've just trained your mind to run away from anything uncomfortable, boredom, and it's not just boredom, but I'm sure most people when they're feeling stress and they pick up their phone and start scrolling because they're looking for some sort of way to escape that feeling. So yeah, it's moving away from probably that confidence conversation, but into like how we cope with some of that stuff.
Mm,
Very much like if we're avoidant and avoid dealing with it, avoid feeling it. Like, how are you preparing to deal with high pressure moments in your sport or the rest of your life if your whole mindset around uncomfortable emotion is basically run away from it? Yeah, so the phones I always challenge because that's a good first one. I'm like, just try and stand in the line at the supermarket without pulling out the phone. It's pretty hard for some people.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
probably
one hundred
me at the
percent.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you some like I'm just as bad. I think we're all trapped. It's not just kids. Um, you watch sit down and watch the cars go past and see how many of them are going like driving like this. So it's like
Yeah.
it's driving down the road's too uncomfortable because there's not enough stimulation. So I need to have something to look at. It's crazy. There's a kind of I don't know if I did in the workshops with you guys, but yeah, sometimes they have a screen so like it just says beware of the emotional avoidance device, because if you're using it for
Yeah,
that. Mm.
yeah, that's really interesting. So, when you're working with, say, families, parents, individuals, and they're in that space, in that zone, are there things you do to bring about more discomfort? Like, are there some habits
Yeah.
that maybe families can put in place, or is it just switch off the phone and be bored?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it, or are there some other sort of habits that are worth putting in place to
Yeah,
bring
when
about
we
that more
play
discomfort?
let's get into like what we would do, like playing around with people to sort of bring in a little bit of you can start really small, but bringing in some of that stuff to start being good at it, just being with that feeling, being able to let it sit and name it and then let it pass. So to practice it, that you can start small with those things, like don't, I've done so many different things with, we'll set goals around, maybe go sit in a cafe and have a coffee by yourself. Obviously not the little kids, but, um, and, adults, like, that's pretty hard. Oh, obviously don't pull out your phone. Like you got to sit there and have it without, um, and notice what's going on. So it's perfectly harmless. But then also, more importantly, okay, we talked about those personal qualities and character and all that we want to reinforce. Finding an area there, um, and then going towards that and being a little bit uncomfortable in the direction of like what's really important to you. 'Cause that's hopefully more motivating.
Yeah.
Like another example with young kids would be, often you'll get a kid who wants to be a leader or a captain in the team, but maybe they're struggling with speaking in front of everyone. So there's it, just setting easy targets and going, well, let's practice being uncomfortable, and maybe you need to do this, or as you might have heard me say, maybe it's just putting your hand up in class at school, a little bit more answering a question, maybe potentially being wrong, maybe being embarrassed, maybe all that. Um, and then through that, that's why having somebody to sort of coach you through that can be helpful, because then I can go the next one. Okay, did you do it? What did you do? And hold them accountable a little bit through that. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
those little bits of practice are like exposure to uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
feelings, and they're learning. I actually went towards that. Like I chose to do that. I chose to have that feeling. So I chose that suffering. And as a result, because I chose that, it's a lot more easier. It's still not nice, but it's easier. And then in that, if we transfer it to sport, we can go, um, I'm choosing in this moment to take the shot, to do the thing, and in the service of what's important to me, of being that person that, has the courage and, gives everything and is willing to fail and all those sorts of things. Yeah.
Living on the edge of your potential, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the important when people feel like they have power over that discomfort, like it's not nice when you're feeling it, when you don't, but if you've had a process of choosing to be uncomfortable, choosing stress and stuff like that, then you're going to be far more, you have more belief in yourself as well, because you're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I go towards this stuff, this is, yeah.
So do you do any work like so for like nerves during or for a competition or pre before a game, like
Mm.
any work around mindfulness and things to help with those like nerves?
Yeah,
You do, yeah,
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 yeah, it's a great tool. Being careful that when we introduce it, we're not talking about mindfulness as an escape from your feelings.
yeah,
It's more of well, the way we would see it in effective sports psychology would be like, um, being able to notice a feeling that's there.
naming it.
And yeah, being able to name that and really acknowledge it and allow it to be there. But then also by naming it and noticing that feeling, it also can give you that space to then choose, or,
Mm.
just not engage with it in the same way, not try and get rid of it, not struggle with it. It's kind of this acceptance of like, there it is. Okay, so there's the nerves. Hello. And that's why sometimes I encourage people to like come up with a name for the that side of themselves, and then they can say, oh, um there's old Tom up here. Yep, here he is. Hello, welcome back. Here we are again, It's just like really sort of being present with those feelings. So really important that's not like an escape. And that's the problem. I think mindfulness becomes another, what Ben said, another sometimes like, this will make you feel better.
Yeah,
This will make you
Um,
comfortable.
a
It's like,
quick
no,
fix. Yeah,
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 no, what? Should be uncomfortable. It should be quite hard to do. So,
yeah.
um,
Within that mindfulness, whether it's pre-game and maybe it's not pre-game, maybe it's helping with that space of this is who I am and this is who I want to be.
Mm.
Do you use visualization in there? I read an amazing book recently called Three Simple Steps by Trevor Blake.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of blew me away. He did a lot of talking about this sort of stuff, visualization, when he was talking about, and I have no idea if this is true or not. He is a physicist, so I'm hoping that it is, that if your visualization is vivid enough and you kind of try and use all your senses with it,
Yep.
that the brain can't really tell the difference between imagination and reality. So
Yep.
that is that kind of true? And can you use visualization to almost bridge that gap so that you've lived these moments before?
Yeah, sounds exactly like the line I've probably used.
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, so like you got it right, like bang on, like it's got to be multi-sensory or polysensory. So using all the senses got to be very vivid and very, very controlled. But if you do that, then we know there's a like a functional equivalence, like it's using the same neural pathways as if you're actually doing it.
Mm.
You put the caveat in, like I think from the latest, I haven't done what was the latest when I finished studying 8 years ago was like, yeah, it's not as good as like practicing,
Yeah.
definitely not. But in real life. But say if you're learning a skill by visualizing, you're still going to get better just visualizing. So you actually will improve even without even, you know, picking up the cricket bat or kicking the ball, as long as you're just visualizing it. Now, in the perfect world, you get someone to do both of those things, yeah. And that's a massive skill. Sometimes do that with teams. We'll do that with individuals sometimes in sessions and things, but my struggle is getting people to do it because they kind of just want the quick fix and it takes practice.
And is that because they're skeptical about
I don't know.
some of this?
I don't know. I stand there and I goes, it's not a question of whether this is going to help. It's just whether you're going to do it.
Yeah,
And I don't do it. And I'm
interesting.
like, the very best do. Um, and sometimes they do it in their own way, you know. I think I heard a quote with Richie McCaw talking about he didn't really realize he was visualizing, but he was just running through stuff over and over again of like what they're
Yeah.
gonna do, and like running through scenarios and plans and like and then really vividly what are they gonna do here? What are we gonna do here? And all that. People don't have to necessarily like go right, set the clock and right now I'm gonna visualize. Maybe
Yeah.
they do it sitting on the bus or whenever and not don't fully realize it, which was my first experience with it and got me one of the things that got me into sports psych. I just spent maybe it was because I was worried, but it was a real positive like anticipation for this game of rugby, and I just spent days like just tackling this number eight. I was a flanker. And I just went over and over and over again, just tackling him, tackling him. He was the threat that week. It was back when I was at school, and I think I won't drop a name. I think he went on to be All Black. This kid,
So
he
I
was he
remembered
was big. Yeah.
it.
But I got in like tackled I got 100% against in that game, and like you go, oh, how do you know it's because of the visualization? But I just felt I was like, that was amazing. Like like
Yep.
this kid had been running riot in this tournament, and somehow and for me I was kind of like there's something there, and that kind of like happened by accident, really,
You
probably
feel the
really.
difference. I
Yeah.
have something very similar. I was not a flanker. I'm way too small. I was a halfback. But so
Yeah.
I can still remember the game, and I can still remember visualizing the night before because it was an important game, and I didn't know I was visualizing. But because you put that importance on it, you were running through it in your head, and pretty
Yeah.
much everything that I'd run through in my head happened the next day, and it was
Yeah.
brilliant. But didn't go through any process or anything like that.
No.
But I never got back there either because I don't think I had habits or a process around it.
Yeah.
And is that something that a point you can get to if you practice it enough
Yeah, well,
and
I
know
think
the
that's
right
the thing.
steps?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. It's like people have those moments, but man, when you don't feel that, you should still be doing it, and
Yeah.
it almost feels like training. That's why it's called mental training, often it should be because you got to put in the work with something like that. And well, you got to compete with TikTok and Netflix and whatnot, so people don't want to.
But
So it's hard,
is it also
especially.
that you have to compete with the other things you need to prepare? Like a lot of the times you talk about maybe you're trying to get faster. So you're working on your speed, you're
Mm,
working on skills, strength and conditioning, and these are things that we can see,
mm.
and maybe it's harder to see mental performance. And do you think
Yeah,
you're also sometimes competing against those things within a preparation or a training kind of realm?
yeah, that's true. I mean, I haven't thought as much about that, but I think it's a problem of being with sports psych as a whole of being really hard to measure. So we know
Yeah.
we have those anecdotal stories about you've got one, I've got one, but we don't know for sure whether that could have happened without and it's hard to, and outcomes are often blur our sort of what they bias, I guess, our what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of attribution of like what we attribute to our success, Was it the visualization or was it the practice that I put in and not all that? It's hard to sort of know, so it's kind of a little bit blurry around those areas, yeah, and hard to see improvement, if you're working on certain skill in football, you can see the improvement hopefully after a while. Um,
100%.
but I mean, hopefully you can see it with your imagery too. It just probably takes a bit more discipline because it's not a physical, you don't get that reward in that moment of doing something. You've got to kind of sit down by yourself and go into your own head.
And so, what sort of age would you introduce this? And maybe it's visualization, or maybe it's habits around questions around certain things as your kids are getting older and creating those habits.
Yeah.
How young would you introduce some of this stuff?
Oh, I think young kids would be like the best at visualizing and imagery, but like whether you're putting too much importance on the, the outcomes and stuff like that, there's
Mm,
the success by bringing that stuff in. I guess I've worked with like 10-year-olds and I really like just going, oh, okay, we'll talk about something. So I go, "Oh, okay, how are you gonna, what could you say to yourself in that moment?" And they'll go, oh, listen, okay, right, let's imagine it. And then we'll talk through, you're in that moment, close your eyes. Okay, what were you gonna say? Yep, I'll remind it. So you kind of, anything we talk about, we'll rehearse through imagery. I mean, more often with young,
mm,
but or like sometimes the kids like animal imagery,
yep,
like imagining like certain animals, what they want to be like, what that's like, and that can help bring up that sort of intention that they want to play with and that sort of stuff. The kids are good with that. But I don't know. I think under 12, you probably don't want to be talking about mental training for performance. You want to be talking about these skills for life and yeah. So you wouldn't want to be going, right, let's sit down and work on your um left foot or whatever with some visualization. I just think it's too much for the
yep.
young ones. And then after that, maybe when they get into sort of teenage years, that performance based stuff can come in. But we want to be, I think, yeah, and it's just
Someone who's picked a sport has decided they want to be really good at it and
Mm,
want to have a crack.
yeah, yeah. But
Um,
like 10-year-olds and that, it's like let's try and just leave the high performance stuff and talk about if it is imagery, let's just talk about imagining like being like a really brave person today and
Yep,
going back to what are those qualities that you want and that you see in your kids and want to bring out. And they could maybe visualize that, but yeah, performance stuff probably not.
100%.
Yeah.
so Zane, we had a couple of people email in some questions that they would love for you to
Sweet. Yeah.
answer. So one
Cool.
of them is, what is the best way to help a child or group handle missing out on selection for a team when they were desperate to make it but didn't get selected? Is there a recommended way this process could be handled to reduce the impact?
Um, I almost flinch a little bit when people talk about wanting to reduce the disappointment, because if they care, um, and they fail, that's cool that they went for it
Mhm.
and did something they really cared about,
Mhm.
put themselves out there. Because if we really want to get rid of disappointment, you can just not do those things. But no one would say that's doing the things they want to do in life. So we've got to acknowledge there's going to be some disappointment. Yeah. But in saying all that, I think answering that question again, if we've kind of really talked about the identity stuff in terms of their personal qualities and we're acknowledging that and we're helping them to just go like this is a small moment on your development as a player, as a person, but what you've shown, like you can be really proud of these things that you've gone and shown, hopefully, if you've emphasized that from the start. So you need to get in there quick and make sure that achievement and making teams isn't it's hard, but isn't the number one. There's more. Yeah, and then dealing with the disappointment itself, I think we as parents probably is the worst, and coaches probably feel this as well, is that when you see a kid in pain, you feel it
Yeah.
and you want to get rid of it.
Mm.
And it's easier to um get rid of pain than actually feel it. But what's that teaching them? Oh, we don't have discomfort, you shouldn't have it. So let's get rid of it. Change the subject. Let's go get ice creams and ignore, like whatever. Um, Not saying don't get ice creams after the game, but oh,
Yeah.
that would be
There's
horrible.
always give
Too
an
hard
ice
on
cream.
kids. Yeah, too hard. You got to enjoy that. But like just trying not just you're not letting them sort of wallow in it, but you're just acknowledging that you can see that and you acknowledge that feeling and that's okay. And that's really nice that they're feeling that disappointment about not making that team in this moment because it means they're doing stuff that's important to them, they care
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And can we just not make that sadness and disappointment a negative emotion? Because the flip side of it is the joy of making a team. And again, well, we could take away the disappointment, but we're also going to take away the joy.
Mm.
So if we think of by not participating at all, so if we think of that and, do they want to have a life where there's no joy? No, they would say no. You say, well, you know, the other side of that is this disappointment, and it's hard. Reminding them that it is hard. I'm with you. I feel this, and let's just acknowledge, um, that this is life doesn't come packaged all of one side of that coin. The one side of that coin, the joy side. It comes both sweet and sour. Um, it's a real. I guess the key themes is acceptance, acknowledgement of that disappointment, and you're not making that emotion the enemy. You're just really welcoming it in those ways. Um, yeah, there's probably more, but I can't remember.
Do you use a moment like that where a child hasn't made a team as a teachable moment? As maybe not in that moment that they've just missed
Yeah.
out because the disappointment's there, but later on that reflection around, okay, let's look at why you didn't make the team.
Mm,
And if you really care about it, let's give it a crack next year, but let's work on this in between.
yeah, 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 and even going, well, next year you might not make it, you might make it. But what's also important about how you want to go about this, like you want to let that disappointment boss you around, or you want to do it for other reasons and for, to test yourself and to be courageous and grit your teeth and never give up and have show those qualities. So you kind of emphasize them. And then, those moments, sometimes when people are really disappointment, I like them to think, um, okay, you're feeling it right now. Um, what will you sort of like in 4 weeks or in a few months, what will you think about this moment? Oh, probably be, hopefully they can I'll look back on it as kind of like a learning, so you're getting them to, hope that makes sense. You're getting them to think in the future from where they are now, not straight away, but as you say, as you may be talking about it next day or whatever, going like, how would you look back on this? Oh, maybe that was the moment that spurred me on, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe there's that story. Maybe that was the moment that made me realize that the disappointment doesn't kill me and I can handle it and still wake up the next day and be the same person and it was okay. So there's lots of ways we can hopefully spin it, or the kids can spin that and go, yeah, okay, maybe I will in the future look back on this in a different way. So trying to starting those narratives about the disappointing moment.
I like that. I like that how you brought it back to their values and those individual qualities that they want. So bringing it back to, yes, I've got disappointment, but I'm gritty. I'm still going to fight next year.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I like that. Yeah.
And if they've clarified that early, if you're with a team that talks about, it's hard with every player, but if the parents have said, like, what's the type of person you want to be this year, maybe, and then they have that moment of disappointment, you go, hey, you know, stay true to that person. You did it. You succeeded in that already, regardless of your achievements or lack of. You can still go and do that and be that person and
100%.
reward
And then
that.
that transfers to all areas of life, right? When you bring it
Yeah.
back to that. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
the stuff we do, the achievements we have, it all seems so important, eh? But we want to try and get to that point where we can go, oh, actually, who I was along the way was more important.
Yeah.
And it
Totally.
is hard for kids to see that. Like it's hard, but hopefully with those moments, you can sort of start to just get them thinking about that. Like, this is the person I am. This is the person I want to be. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Sometimes I fail, but
Yeah.
I'll always be me, as much as I can. Mm.
Yeah. Hey, look, we've got another question here.
Right.
And this one's about a team, sorry, a player who excels at their sport. But sometimes, and Kimmy, who sent this son, said when it comes to a high stakes tournament, they can get a little bit rattled mentally and start to doubt themselves and let the pressure get to them. So usually a really, really strong player, but in these moments where they feel that it's an important tournament, whether it's for selection or the team, the others, the family, whoever's themselves are putting a lot of pressure on them, they let that get to them and their performance drops.
Yeah.
What would you do in that situation? And I guess how could a parent help support their child through that situation?
Mm. Well, I'd really want to know, like, I guess a little bit more about what's going on with that person. Um, how, how are they responding to those moments that should have the perception of, more pressure and more importance? Is it through, as often it might be like is it avoidance behaviors? Is it freezing? Is it sort of hesitation? Is it just not getting involved as much? And then we would start to work on like understanding that in those moments, the current tendency when the pressure's there is to hold back and avoid. That's an avoidance coping strategy. So the motivation is to avoid because failing is catastrophic. So it's easier to just, in their head, that's um, probably most common, but not always. Maybe there's other reasons. But if it is that one, it's quite common, then we start to look at really learning about, hey, that, because you are feeling that in that moment, that doesn't have to hold you back from going for it and getting out there. And sometimes it's the simple question of like, okay, so what do you think deep down's holding you back in those moments of making you hesitate or avoid? And and freeze and not play your best. And they'll often be like, well, it's a fear of failure.
Yeah.
And so we will say, I'll always say, well, you're failing already because you're not playing at your best. So it's kind of a simple, um, so, if you can go for it and maybe succeed and maybe fail, or you can just do what you're currently doing. And, I wouldn't be like this harsh, but do what you can do what you're currently doing, and you're guaranteed that you're not going to, play well. And we're really trying to get them to then go, okay, I need to be the courageous. And then I might start them on a program, or maybe parents, I guess, could do it. It's like, okay, so when you feel that fear of failure and it holds you back because of the pressure situation, it's a big game, really important. You haven't done well in those moments before, and you're afraid that will happen again. Can you notice that feeling? And then go do something courageous. Go take one step,
Mhm.
and then we'd score that. I literally would have charts sometimes. How many times did you feel that and then go forward? 1, 2, 3, cool. Next week, 4, 5, and we're
Awesome.
just
Yeah.
looking for those moments. And so they start to go, well, the success is actually how many times they feel the feeling of pressure and do the opposite of what the feeling's telling them, and they go for it. So,
Building up more courage, right?
yeah. And so every time they get points,
Awesome.
and that courage builds that confidence, and then suddenly they go, hang on, I can feel that and still play well. And then they don't feel it as much because, um, but the goal is not to not feel that straight away, because that's a hard one. It'd be hard to not feel worried about stuffing up in a really big game. So we're going, okay, you're going to feel that because it's how you've been feeling. And another one is to divide up. You could sit down and go, right, when that feeling has control, when that feeling's bossing you around, what you do, and you write down all the things that make you sort of not play well. Okay, and then let's look at the opposite of when who you are and who you want to be as a person is in control. And then they got those two lists,
Yeah.
and they can clearly go, well, I'm going to choose more of this one, more of this one. And it's conscious, like, because a lot of this stuff is just impulse. Yeah. So it's hard in the moment. But then you've got those lists, and then, like, then you can visualize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
And that
seems like it's
rehearses
just
it.
kind of reframing that moment to who I want to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Going back to this is the person I want to be. Um, and anxiety, pressure, stress of those big moments, fear of failure, whatever that is, it's there. Okay. I'm just not going to let it control me. It's not going to boss me around today. And then the moment they do something with all that fear, this is what I tell them will be when the success happens, is like the success is when you are like shitting yourself. Not for the youngest ones say that, but when you're,
They
like,
do. They do.
yeah. But okay, when you're absolutely shitting yourself and then you succeed, that's when the growth will happen, and that's what we're looking for. So when you say that's what we're looking for, that's achievable, because then they're shitting themselves. They go, oh, this is a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Like, this is an opportunity, not, oh, here it is again.
Yeah.
I'm going to play badly, you know. And sometimes we'll have like quotes of athletes, before these big moments, of when they'll say exactly that. I think I found in the newspaper that Grant Elliott, a quote from him before he hit the winning six against South Africa in 2015 semi-final, the World Cup. How he was like, I was absolutely shitting myself. He's like, there you go. So you feel
Perfect.
that, it's an opportunity.
Do mantras work in that situation? Do you ever use mantras, and or do any of your athletes, when they feel that moment, a mantra to reframe themselves
Yeah,
or walk towards that?
yeah. I probably don't use it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it too much. I guess the mantra word is probably more like I just use like it's just like self-talk or cues, like verbal cues that say
Right.
like what. So sometimes I'll have people be like, "What's your reminder for yourself?" And it's just like something like be me, be me,
Mm.
be me, be me. They'll keep saying that, just be
Yeah.
myself. And that's kind of like, wow, I can do that because I fail, I succeed. I know, I can, you know, I know those qualities that I've got to bring, and so I can be me. So those are kind of cool little reminders. I guess you could call them mantras, and yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
be similar type of thing. But like just verbal cues or some of that self-talk stuff. Really around the intention. I wouldn't like people to have self-talk around like trying to positive talk your way out of certain emotions. I'm more of a very much like a let's acknowledge those and just know that they're not going to boss us around. They're not going to control us today.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you get into a big fight. Um, and you basically keep saying that emotions are these anxieties, these pressures, doubts, they're bad, they're bad, they're bad. Yeah, it might work to get rid of them, but you got to know the game you're playing. If you're going to play that game, then you're telling yourself that you shouldn't feel that. Yeah.
Um, Zane, what's like one book, a tool, or a resource that you would recommend to parents?
Oh, I've got I've got a book actually.
Awesome.
Fancy you
Yay.
say.
Yay.
Right.
I've got one right here. What a lot of what we've been talking about today. Oh, here it is.
Yes, yes.
Are you going to have it on YouTube
Yeah,
or?
we will.
Yeah,
And
we will.
we were actually going to ask you, our next question was going to be around that book because both Ben and I have had a look. So, yeah,
Oh
talk
yeah.
about, yeah, the journal.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff we talked about today, I guess, it's
Yeah.
kind of takes them through knowing and understanding themselves. Who's the sort of person and the qualities they want to bring to their sport, the values that they want to have, and then kind of encouraging them to, like things like the brave bank in there where they have to jot down like, okay, well, what's some brave things that you've done and what can you do? And so really talking about courage and like a little bit of like the growth mindset stuff of like how you approach challenges, or look at things as challenges, I should
Mhm.
say, rather than, threats. So
Yeah.
having a challenge mindset, like, oh, this is the hardest team in the league. This is going to suck. It's going to be hard, and changing that to like, this is an opportunity. This is, things like that. So, but ultimately as well, just a journal book so they can write down as they go. Because you probably heard today, like a lot of those things, it's kind of cool to just jot down, oh, how many times was I courageous?
Yeah.
How many times did I feel those doubts and then not, um, listen to them and I went for it,
Yeah.
you know? And those are so good. You can go and like to celebrate if you're a parent, you're like, you went for it. And they're like, oh yeah, but I failed. I was like, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
The courage that took to go for that in that moment, like, bigging that stuff up. It's so important, but we kind of, I mean, I shouldn't say we don't, we do, but like just more because all this pressure about achievement, results, outcomes, right? That's the stuff. But yeah, we've got to be, we've got to be proud of those kids that just put it all on the line and fail. That's outstanding. Because the next time you never know, but
Cool. Well, we will make sure that we put a link to that.
yeah.
As I say,
Oh
Ben and
yeah.
I had a look, and Ben
Oh
was saying that there were snippets that you used in some of his talks, which
yeah, yeah. It's probably from the original program that in probably at the stadium, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like my son still got that. And I think when you write it down, it's such a good reflective tool, right? If you're
Mm.
just talking through stuff, you forget it. But if
Yeah,
you've written down, you go back, oh, that's right. And you can reflect on that. And actually, quite often you can see how far you've come.
perfect. Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
it. We forget that. It's like it might be in there, even that quote, but sometimes we we're always looking at the top of the mountain, and we don't stop and look at the view and go, how far have I come from this point, eh?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
wow, that used to make me real nervous. It doesn't anymore. So actually, maybe I am building confidence. So and that helps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So look, yeah, we'll put it's on Amazon, isn't it? Your book.
It's actually I've got copies here now, so it's on my website straight from New Zealand. So it's a lot easier because Amazon comes from Australia. Um,
Perfect.
and these ones are better versions as well. They're hard copy and hardcover. I mean, so
So we'll
yeah,
put all those
the
links
website
across.
on my website, and then yeah,
Awesome.
there's no other good books. That's the only one out there
The only book in the whole world that is out worth reading.
Love it. Love it.
that.
Oh,
Sweet.
cool.
Brilliant. Look, one last question before you go. All right.
Okay.
In a nutshell, if you could give one piece of advice to every youth athlete, what
Oh.
would that piece of advice be?
Um, just I want to make it short. One thing I say a lot would be that is just decide what you want to give of yourself, um, not what you want to get for yourself. So make make it really about giving to the world what you have to offer rather than getting stuff. And I don't mean like things like accolades, the outcomes, the wins, the teams, that one. Forget about that. It'll come if you give all of yourself that you have to give. And um, that for me sums up a lot of the concepts in sports psych because it's controllable. It's like process focus, not present moment stuff, not outcome and future stuff. So it's really just like, and it's value based rather than achievement based or outcome based. Yeah,
Love
probably the
that.
first one that comes to mind, mate. Probably something
Love
else
it.
when I'm lying in bed or that one.
No, I love that. And I think Winston Churchill said something very similar a
Oh,
while
maybe
ago.
stole it from him.
But
Yeah,
yeah, maybe, but
stole my
it,
stuff from
it makes
someone.
sense, right? And then it's not just about creating great sports people, it's about creating great humans.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, yeah,
that's one of the reasons we started this show and we're doing what we're doing. So that aligns perfectly. And I
yeah.
think, yeah, love that. Cool.
Awesome.
Zane, thank you
Yeah.
so much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Love what you guys are doing. Hopefully it goes well and there's people that get a lot of benefit out of it. And yeah, I'm
Cool.
stoked to be the guest.
Cool.
First guest, I guess.
Awesome.
Magic.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Zane.
But we hope you really enjoyed that chat with Zane. And I think if you can take even just one of the things he spoke about, work on that with your youth athlete, then that's an absolute win. And you can just chip away at those small wins over time. If you'd like any more of Zane's work, to look into that, his mental toughness journal, which I can absolutely speak to. The links are in our details, and you can follow that through to there. We would love you to subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, that's an absolute must because you're missing out if you're not. Everyone who subscribes, it really helps us to bring bigger and better people and experts to you. So please pass that on, share it out there with anyone you think who might be interested, and let's grow this community. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.